Our family must be like many other families. Does any other family have this problem that things just go missing? Does anyone else have that problem in the house? Things go missing, they vanish. And normally the answer is this: we always blame mum. Okay, we always blame Naomi. So whenever the kids are gone or something goes wrong, where's mum put it? Mum must have put it. Naomi must have put it somewhere. And the problem we've had over the recent times is this: with lockdown, with even tier 3, when you can't go out that much, when stuff goes missing, you know that it's got to be in the house somewhere. You know that thing when you know it's not out the house? You know someone hasn't taken it somewhere else. And we spend all the time searching for these things. Often it's Lego, and often it's, where is it? I don't know where it is. And my kids will come up to me, Dad, can you help me find this? I don't know where you put it. Or I'll complain, I can't find my slippers, and I don't know where they are. And my slippers are always where I've left them. I've always found that. They're always under the sofa. And always this is happening over and over again. And what's happened to us is recently we've got our kitchen got redone. So now we know where everything is in the kitchen because I've put everything in the kitchen. But I still can't find anything. And I still find myself, every time I go to cook, I'm going to the wrong place. Then I've got to try and remember where I put it. And then I discover, like earlier on, I went to open the door and I put the cheese grater by the door when someone delivered a parcel. And I've just found all I seem to be doing at the moment is searching. You know, when you look for something, when you look for an answer, I don't know if any of you have got Alexas or Google speakers in your house, but whenever we need an answer for anything, we always go, Google. If anyone's got a Google listening at home afterwards, is going to set them off. Okay, Google, please tell me this. But when you've lost something, sometimes you can't ask Google where things are. And in our house, not even in our house, in my life recently, I've had a lot of different people start contacting me. People from around the world who've sort of connected in with our church or have relationships with our church. And there's so many people who are searching for something. They're asking searching questions about God. They're asking searching questions about life. They want to know more. Circumstances have changed. Things have happened. And they're searching for answers. And they in public, they keep saying, you know what, I don't believe in God. But in private, they're desperate to want to know more about God. And I love the fact that this Christmas, we've got so many people in our country, in our land, in the world who want to know more about Jesus. And it reminds me of the story that we've just watched in the building here about the wise men, about the Magi. We get introduced to them. If you're following in your Bible, we go to Matthew chapter 2. And Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 2 says this: After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem, and they asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him." Now, we don't know much about these men, but has anyone ever been a king? I know, Julian, I think you've been a king, haven't you? Many years ago in the plays. But they weren't actually kings. You know, we sing that song, "We Three Kings of Orient are." That's not actually an accurate song, because we don't know how many wise men they were, and we don't even know if they were kings. We've just got these three clever guys, these three Magi's, turn up in the story. We know they're coming from the east. We know they're following a star, but we don't know much about them. They could have been Persian. They could have been further east from Persia. They could have been Jews that were for the diaspora as such, who ended up there after the Jews went into exile a few years before. They could have been astronomers. They could have been philosophers. We just don't know. All we know is that there were there were some pretty well-educated guys who turned up. And for the last few years, a lot of people have been trying to work out what this star they were following. I don't know if you guys have seen in the news, they keep talking about the Christmas star this year. Have you heard about the Christmas star? Apparently Jupiter and Saturn are supposed to line up in the next few weeks. Has anyone else heard about this or not? Or is it just me? Oh, fantastic, Esther. I'm glad you're right there. Someone's heard. She's got the brains. And they're supposed to line up and supposed to go across. I don't know where this is supposed to be above. But this is supposed to happen soon. And people have been talking for years. Was it when Jupiter and Saturn lined up? Was it a comet? Was it an angel? Was the star directly above Jesus' stable, or did they just sort of go in the right direction and find Jesus? We don't quite know. It could have been anything. The truth of the matter is, with these wise men, we don't know much about them, except there were some wise men. They followed something that was like a star towards Jesus. But the thing we know is this, is these men were desperate to find God. These men were desperate to search for God become a human. They were desperate. They were looking for signs in the heavens. They were looking for anything that pulled them towards God. And that's why they went on this journey to find Jesus. And I'm sure we can ask any Christian this question. If you're a Christian, if we asked you, how did you become a Christian? What led you to becoming a Christian? Each of us would give different, our stories would all be different. But the thing we'd have in common is this. Something happened, there were some signs. We did some searching, even if it was accidental searching. We searched, and signs came together that pointed us towards Jesus. When I look at the story of the wise men, I see some anonymous guys. I keep wanting to say 3 wise men, but there weren't 3. I've got to get that out of my head. But there were 3 anonymous people who just followed the signs and eventually found Jesus. And the truth of the matter is, for most of us, we're just anonymous people who are searching for Jesus, aren't we? We're just people who, ideally, I'd like to be remembered for hundreds of years, but I'm not silly. I can guarantee probably after about 20 years, after eventually I'm in the ground, everyone will go, Jim, who? Who is he? I'm just an anonymous person searching for God in a confusing world. And sometimes when we're searching for God, sometimes when situations are tough, we need to search for God even harder. And all of us are just like these wise men. We're people who are just looking out for signs, looking out, saying, God, where are you? I'm desperate to find you. And we keep going towards him. But I want to encourage you. Just, if nothing else you get from this message, it's this. Keep going. Keep searching for God. I don't know how each of you guys are feeling here tonight. I don't know what situations have happened in the last week. But for some of you, you just keep wanting to God. Maybe you've asked God questions and you're searching for God in your situations. I want to tell you, keep going. Pete Dean determined to find him. God doesn't hide from us. He's like that star that they were following. He's there in front of us, calling us to journey towards him. And the choice of whether we go towards God or whether we sit back is our choice. We need to try and push. We need to choose to go towards him. And what really strikes me about these wise men is this, is after going on this journey, after clearly being waiting, looking for signs of God, they then set about their journey. And when they arrived in Jerusalem, so obviously they were following the star, the right direction. We're not sure if the star was permanently in front of them or if it was just pulling them towards Jesus slowly. We don't quite know how it worked. But whatever happened, they ended up in Jerusalem. And when they got to Jerusalem, they were looking for this Jewish king, the Savior who was come to be born. And they went to the obvious place. They went to King Herod's house, King Palace. And they went and they said, where is this king? And Herod goes, what king? And I don't know if you guys know much about Herod, but Herod was the king of the Jews. But he wasn't really the king of the Jews. He was a really clever guy who basically got himself into a position where he was king of the Jews with the Romans. And he was one of these guys who He would be quite a devout Jew. He would go to the temple. He would do all his offerings and everything else. He'd do what he needed to do. But he was also a crazy guy. He got 2 of his sons killed because he thought they might overthrow him. He got one of his wives killed. He had 10 wives. I think you're crazy anyway if you got 10 wives. But that's another story. But one of his wives, he got killed because he thought she was plotting something and someone stirred it. And he was this paranoid guy. But on the surface of it, for those who didn't know him very well, you would think he was a good Jewish man. He helped expand the Jewish temple. He helped do things and really push the Jewish cause. But he was kind of, there's 2 sides to him. And when these wise men came and spoke to King Herod, he said, tell me more. And when they said, well, we're on the journey, we're trying to find him, we don't know much more. He went and he got his religious leaders. And his religious leaders came up and they opened up the scriptures and they said, the Jewish Messiah is going to be born in Bethlehem. So the king you're looking for must be born in Bethlehem. So Herod comes forward and he goes to the wise men. He says this. He says to them, guys, when you discover Jesus or the king, come tell me where he is because I want to go and worship him. When really Herod wanted to kill him. And I've been thinking about this story quite a lot when preparing this message. I keep on stepping on the lights. Have you noticed that the lights are flashing depending how I'm walking? It keeps you entertained, see how long it goes. But Herod, he looked good. He looked like he had pure motives. But underneath it all, Herod had really bad motives. All Herod cared about was himself. And as I was looking at this, as I've been thinking, as I try and think quite a lot, I thought, when I'm searching for answers, I need to be really, really careful of who I go and ask for help from. When I'm searching for answers, I need to be really careful about who I go to get the answers from. Because I've worked out in my life, I'm not cynical, I'm a little bit cynical, just a little bit. But often, when I go to people for questions and advice, often people give me the advice that benefits them. Often people will try and twist things to encourage us. I was really impacted about a year ago. One of our guys who's connected to our church put something online. There was a church in Nigeria that said if you don't give a certain amount of money every month, you were going to go straight to hell. You've heard of those churches, haven't you? The ones that are really crazy. And you knew the only reason the pastor was standing at the front is because the pastor wanted a nice limousine out the front. Okay, the only reason he was up here is because when he left, he wanted a lot of money. He was manipulating people. And often we can meet other people and other religious people and even our friends who try and give us advice because they're trying to manipulate us because they want stuff that just suits them. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, how do I protect myself from this? And I want to encourage you, when looking at these wise men, as we see later on in the story, they kept searching for God and God gave them a way out from Herod. But even though they went to the wrong person, even though they went to Herod, because they went to Herod, the manipulative snake, is any word I could use for him, to direct them, God used Herod. God used Herod. And God gave them the direction through Herod of where Jesus was going to be born. So even when we're searching for answers and people have the wrong motives, God can still use that. And this really reminded me of Romans 8 verse 28 that says this. Thank you, Noam. Bang on from here. It says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Should we say that together? And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. If you are searching, and you are searching with a pure heart, you are searching because you want to know God, I believe God will use everything, even someone who's manipulative, to get us towards him. We still have to be wise Because you know what, these guys, they still went and they still worshipped Jesus. God still revealed in a dream to them what Herod's motives were. But they searched and directed God. They searched for God, and God directed them. Now, many years ago, does anyone remember their first car? When they got their first car? When I was younger, I remember my first car. It was a Vauxhall Astra. And it was a really heavy car. And this was before the days of power steering. You know the really old cars, if anyone's drive, you have to try like muscles in your hand to move them. And I remember this car without power steering, my first one. I used to try and park it in front of my house. And I remember trying to straighten up the wheels. And I was there, and I was just trying to, like this, keep on trying to move it. And it was just so tough. I remember my neighbor came out to me one day, and he said to me, he said, Jim, he said, you haven't got power steering in your car, like the car that you learned to drive in. He said, you need to learn how to drive this car properly. I said, what do you mean? Here we go, the Christmas tree lights went out there again. And he said this, he said, Jim, he said, when you move the car a little bit, it makes the steering a lot easier. He said, when you just move the car forward slightly, and as you're moving the car, steer the car, it makes things easier. And it's the same with God. The more we search for God, the more we keep pursuing, walking towards him, the easier it is for God to direct us to where he wants us to be. You know, it's not good enough just to go to church. It's not good enough to say that in our lives. But as Christians, we need to constantly be searching for the things of God. You know, when these wise men, when they came to Jesus, the first thing they did, these weren't just anybody. They weren't the shepherds in the field. They were very clever guys. They came and they bowed down and they worshipped Jesus. Guys, it wasn't about being religious like Herod was. Herod went to temple every week, but he tried to kill God. It's about constantly searching and bowing down and worshipping God. It's so simple. When we're searching for God and we eventually find him, we need to just come to him really simply, worship him and say, God, I'm nothing but you're everything. It's not about the grand gestures that we do. It's about simply coming before him and worshipping Jesus. I'm going to come in to finish now so you can breathe. You can go, yes. But as I finish, I've just got 2 challenges. My first challenge is this, is if you don't know Jesus and you're searching for God, maybe you're not sure, maybe you could have been in church for many years and you're just still not sure if Jesus is real or not. I want to encourage you to keep searching. I want to encourage you to keep trying to find out the truth about him, like those wise men did. Keep looking for the signs that where God might be directing you. Remember, it's easier for God to direct someone who's moving than someone who's sitting still. But when you find him, remember to embrace him. Remember to worship him. And if you're a Christian and you're looking for answers, maybe you're asking God about some stuff, you can't understand why things have happened to you the way they've happened to you. Or maybe you're just wondering, there's some questions that are nagging in your head and you just need God's direction. I want to encourage you, keep searching. Keep looking for those signs. Keep walking towards him in the same way that the wise men kept walking towards the star. Whenever they saw the star, they kept going towards it.